Well, I'd like to thank all of our speakers very much for their contributions. Are there any questions or comments people would like to raise? Yeah. Can you use the microphone?
Yeah,
well,
if you could.
If you could, because I think we're being recorded, Stephen. So.
My name's Stephen Hall. I run IOP Publishing, a society publisher in physics. I have a question for Peter. Peter, you said in your opening remarks that one of the reasons you like mega journals is because their approach to peer review of reviewing for soundness only makes them quicker than conventional journals. And I'd ask you what data you have to support that. Because at my company, we rigorously benchmark our speed of peer review and speed to publication against our competitors. The vast majority of journals we publish are reviewing for impact as well as soundness, and we find we are very significantly quicker than PLOS ONE in the time from submission to publication. So I'd ask what data you have to support that.
Thank you. I guess this works. I don't have data. I have this hunch that if you're doing one job instead of two, you can do it faster. So if you're assessing soundness and not significance, you can do it faster than if you were doing both. Now, it's still possible that PLOS ONE, assessing just one of these, is doing it more slowly than your people doing both of these. So it might be a difference in the efficiency of the teams. But still, even with your team, doing one thing must be an easier job than doing two.
It really comes down to other things as well. It comes down to your investment in people to do the peer review, to manage it. It comes down to how you do peer review and to the investment that you make in processes and systems too. I think you're oversimplifying it in saying because you do one thing, it's quicker than doing two. Thank you.
Okay. Have you got anything have you got anything to say about speed of peer review?
I think the argument, I'm pretty certain, I mean, most speech journals probably that you have that are faster than we are. I agree with you. I think one of the arguments that's being made is if you're imagining this kind of cascading of journals within a single publisher, which may or may not be the case at IOP, but at some other publishers for sure, if you go through the peer review through several journals iteratively, then it can take quite a while. And I think that is often an argument that's also been used. For PLOS ONE, with this many papers that we're getting, it is a challenge to make sure that each and every one of them, with 6,000 academic editors, gets a fast processing. It's much easier to do this when you're smaller scale. 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, before PLOS ONE sort of had a huge boost in submissions, our turnaround time was faster. We're working to bring it down again, but with running a very large journal with that many editors, it is a challenge. But as I said before, the paper gets submitted to the journal once, gets considered there, and then that saves you maybe time as well, rather than going ping pong between different journals.
Okay.
And I would just add to that we actually asked publishers about speed of publication of their mega journals, and most kind of acknowledge that actually they're not really any quicker than any other journal, than any non-mega journal, with some exceptions. But there were essentially two reasons for that. One is that the paper is still being sent out for peer review, and so it is still ending up with academics with the responsibility to do that peer review. Now, as Peter said, that peer review may be less involved, it may have less elements to it, but it is still the case that researcher has to sit down and do that peer review, and that takes time. But perhaps more interestingly, what came out as well is that reviewers still do the same kind of reviews that they do for traditional journals. So they will still assess significance and novelty and other factors that aren't supposed to go into the eventual decision-making of the accept or reject decision. And so it comes down to the academic editor then to filter that out. But the actual in practice, the actual peer review process is often exactly the same as for conventional journals.
Any other questions? Peter raised a question, Simon, about what do authors think of soundness only peer review. Do you want to say that in terms of the research that we've been doing?
Yeah, so we, in the focus group section of our research, we've spoken to a large number of researchers from a variety of different disciplines. Within the biosciences, we found a kind of broad acceptance that this is a valuable model, that soundness only, for a large number of them, was viewed positively. In most other cases, there was researchers were reluctant to see this as a particularly positive effect because it removes this filtering aspect, which they deem extremely important in their sort of information discovery. No, but there was a kind of contradiction here in that what we would hear, particularly from social science researchers and physicists, is that they want stuff in highly selective journals that they know has been assessed as being very significant. But when you ask them about their actual information seeking, and you say, well, do you look at the name of the journal if you find something in a database? They say, well, no, actually, I tend to, first of all, just look at the abstract and decide whether it's relevant or not. So there is a contradiction. They say they want the filtering, but their practice doesn't necessarily require it.
Question there.
Yes, I just have a question about whether, in terms of a mega journal, whether there's part of the process has to be figuring out who are the right people to do the review, whereas with a selective journal, it's sort of pre-selected. People won't submit a paper that doesn't fit the type of editorial board you already have together. So is there any part of turmoil in that process with a very, very broad mega journal?
I wouldn't say so, not in my experience. Having been at a very selective journal as well as PLOS ONE, I think the selection of the reviewers is not very different. Matching the manuscript to the academic editor, to one of those 6,000, that's a logistical challenge. That's, I think, something where speed comes into play and where where processes are very important to make sure that they run smoothly.
Any final question? Right, well, will you join with me, please, in thanking all of our speakers? Thank you very much. Thank you.